Let's start with tonight's big number, 8,899. That is the two-week average for COVID cases in the Philippines from October 6 to 17. This marks a negative 44% growth rate in infections. In Metro Manila, reproduction number, or the number of people a patient on average can infect, has gone down to 0.57.
Based on health department data, hospitals both in the capital and nationwide are also in the moderate to safe zone. For COVID-19 beds in the country, utilization rate is at 48.9%, while ICU utilization is at 62.4%. In Metro Manila, both COVID-19 and ICU beds are in the safe zone. Good evening, I'm Gretchen Ho.
I'm Robbie Alampay. You're watching The Big Story. Those improving numbers in the country's COVID-19 situation has prompted an easing of restrictions in NCR to alert level 3.
But some health experts warn hospitals are still running at full capacity. Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro gives us a front seat to the big story.
COVID cases have dropped significantly in the last few weeks, spurring government to lower COVID alert levels. But some doctors warn that they're not out of the woods yet, especially with more people now crowding public places.
Kahit bumaba pa yung mga kaso natin, hindi ibig sabihin na maluwag sa ospital. Wala pa rin.
Almora, in fact, says many hospitals are still operating at 100% capacity, and because of the lag in reporting, DOH numbers do not always reflect the reality on the ground. Almora says it may take another month before they are able to decongest hospitals, but the DOH defended the move to shift to alert level 3 for Metro Manila.
It can be observed that all areas have peaked and are at downward trend.
There's been a negative 44% two-week growth rate of COVID cases nationwide, or an almost 7,000 difference between the last 4 weeks. This improvement shows an NCR where the reproduction number went down to 0.57 and ICU utilization rate of 59% or moderate risk, all of which are ideal numbers for easing restrictions, at least on paper.
Bagamat marami na sa atin ay fully vaccinated, hindi po tayo pwede maging complacent at this point.
As of October 15, there are only 139 areas under granular lockdown in the metropolis, a significant decrease from more than 303 at the start of the month. Alert Level 3 allows up to 30% indoor capacity for fully vaccinated and 50% outdoor capacity regardless of vaccine status. Additional restriction will be placed for areas under the 3 Cs: closed, crowded, and close contact. Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere said the alert level system may be placed on other provinces this week. Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro, we are One News.
To get a better grasp of the actual situation on the ground, we have on the program Dr. Jaime Almora. He is president of the Philippine Hospital Association. We seem to have technical problems. We'll get back to Dr. Jaime Almora later on in the program. Meanwhile, while more Filipinos are getting inoculated against COVID-19, the health department is already preparing to administer a third shot for select groups of people. Speaking on agenda, Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere said that the immunocompromised and the elderly will likely receive their third shots in the next few months following advice from the World Health Organization. Vergere says the recipients must secure a medical clearance from their physicians before taking any third dose.
Yun pong may mga sakit at saka yung mga senior citizens natin, they were found, no? Some of them were found na hindi sila talaga nakakamount ng immune response. So ang rekomendasyon po ng WHO, bigyan natin ng third dose ang ating mga immunocompromised ngayon na.
These are the other big stories tonight. With mobility curbs loosened in NCR, huge crowds gathered in public places, including Manila-based Dolomite Beach. Commuting is also becoming hellish with long lines and not just cars, but also of passengers waiting for a ride home. While it has yet to receive reports of such incidents, the Labor Department warns employers who withhold salary for unvaccinated employees. And the living legend immortalized, Robert Sonny Jaworski Sr. is the new face of the Philippine Postal Corporation's latest commemorative stamps. These big stories after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. With NCR under alert level 3, crowds have started to swell in public and leisure places, just like the Dolomite Beach in Manila.
But it's not just adults. Kids were also seen outside despite restrictions. Camille Samonte has the story.
What social distancing? Thousands gathered at the Manila Baywalk Dolomite Beach over the weekend as Metro Manila eased restrictions to alert level 3. Even before the bay's opening time at 8 a.m., throngs already crowded, a mix of adults and kids.
Hindi kami pupunta, kailan to? Panganay ko, nagsabi bukas naman na sabi niya punta tayo doon, magtatampisaw lang kami. Naawa naman ako.
Dati nung unang punta namin kasi all black pa talaga yung mga sand dito. Ngayon maganda na siya, malinis na.
Social media was also replete with images of huge crowds in Taguig City. Some also show minors. But are minors really allowed to go out under level 3? MMDA Chairman Benhur Abalus clarified, they are, but only for essential activities and services. That means they are prohibited to roam in malls and public places.
I just want to clear that very well. Ngayon, according to the IATF guidelines, no, ang mga minors ay pwede lamang, number 1, for outdoor exercises. Number 2, to buy or obtain essential goods and services, no? And number 3, in some special cases for work, no? And of course, yung pinakapang-apat, yung intrazonal and interzonal transportation.
The Metro Manila Council is set to release guidelines on the interzonal and intrazonal travel of minors.
When you talk of travel, either you walk or of course yung sasakyan natin, no? Generally, dalawa lang yan, it's private, your own personal car, or yung public. You take jeepneys, you take buses, LRT, MRTs. So, yun ang concern ng mga mayors. They would have a uniform policy. Once mapapirmahan ko na lahat, we will announce it the soonest.
The Health Department warned the public not to be complacent despite the easing of restrictions.
Gamat marami na sa atin ay fully vaccinated, hindi po tayo pwede maging complacent at this point. Let us all remember, nakasalalay po sa bawat isa sa atin kung tayo po ay babalik uli sa alert level 4 o kung tayo po ay babalik na naman dun sa cycle natin na tataas sa mga kaso, bababa, tataas, bababa.
For News 5, Camille Samonte, We Are One News.
It was the first work day in Metro Manila under alert level 3, and it did not look like the public transport system was ready. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez gives us a front seat to the story.
Earlier this Monday, commuters rushing to get to work had to endure long lines at the EDSA bus carousel in Muñoz, Quezon City. By the time a bus comes, they're already filled with passengers from Monumento. Many had to wait an hour or more in the heat of the sun. This exact scenario has played out a few times in the past year, whenever the IATF downgraded the capital to GCQ and more businesses opened up. There aren't enough public transport options for those who need to go to work. The EDSA carousel buses are still providing free rides for now, but the DOTR has already said there's no budget for it next year. Many drivers and conductors for the Libreng Sakay program say they actually haven't been paid in months.
Inaantay-antay na lang din po namin. Wala rin naman pong magagawa.
Magkano po yung parang binibigay na allowance po sa inyo?
1,000 po.
Per day po yun?
Opo, pangkain po namin sa biyahe.
According to Alvin, the last pay he got was in June 2021. Bus conductor Emerson Villanueva says he was forced to sell his motorcycle. Many of his coworkers stay home because they're not earning enough.
Tulad na operator, wala nang pang-abono sa diesel. Wala silang yung mga empleyado, mga driver, conductor, wala nang pangkain. Sana ibigay niyan nila yung aming pinaghirapan kasi may pamilya po kami na umaasa sa amin.
A House of Representatives committee has already proposed an additional 6 billion pesos to continue the Libreng Sakay program next year, but this will need to be approved by Senate too. In the meantime, for thousands of commuters, the struggle to get to work safely continues. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez, We Are One News.
Is the country's COVID situation really improving? To find out what it feels on the ground, we have on the program Dr. Jaime Almora, President of the Philippine Hospital Association. Good evening, Dr. Almora.
Good evening. Sorry, na-battery drain ako kanina.
Okay lang po, talagang technical problems. Maraming sanay na sanay lahat ng kababayan natin dyan. Pero Dr. Almora, we're seeing numbers for the past weeks improving, and now we're seeing numbers for the hospitals themselves, supposedly moderate risk na lang, supposedly both in wards and ICUs, the numbers are getting better. But is that how it feels on the ground?
Remember that the hospitals are not caring for COVID only. They also care for other cases. Tumaas din yung mga ibang sakit kasi dahil dito sa rainy season-related illnesses like respiratory illnesses, gastrointestinal, mga infectious diseases, tumataas din with the rainy season. Kaya tumaas yung mga other cases. Although medyo bumababa yung mga COVID cases, ang nababawasan lang ay yung pila.
Okay. Pero so masikip pa rin?
Opo, masikip pa rin. Dahil continuous naman na nauubos din yung personnel namin. Especially mga nurses.
In the meantime po, nakita niyo naman yung mga litrato, yung mga image natin, mga video natin nung itong nakaraang weekend lang, people have started going out. At the same time, siksikan because kulang ang mga bus, ang mga sasakyan. Are you bracing for another surge?
Yes, we are very sure of that. Kaka-surge ulit.
So what do you think should be the compromise here? I imagine, does that necessarily mean that you are against the loosening of restrictions right now?
Hindi naman po. We are just appealing to the people to be responsible. Pag alam naman natin na social distancing lang yung talagang effective at saka vaccination. So kung hindi pa sila vaccinated, they should be responsible enough not to just go around, still to observe distancing. And to take the risk kung gusto nilang lumabas, huwag lang nilang isipin na pag nag-search ulit, mayroong ospital na tatanggap sa kanila. Kung sakaling hindi sila makapasok sa ospital, huwag nilang sisihin yung ospital dahil alam naman natin na kailangan pa rin nating mag-precaution.
Okay, Dr. Jaime Almora of the Philippine Hospital Association, maraming salamat po. In other news, the Labor Department has yet to receive complaints from employees who have not received their wages for being unvaccinated. Recall that according to the Trade Union Congress of the Philippines, some employers have been withholding salaries for unvaccinated workers under a no vaccine, no salary scheme. Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello says this should not be imposed by employers unless there is legal basis or cause to withhold wages. Bello warned that companies implementing the scheme could face sanctions.
Ang gagawin ng DOLE, hanapin yung pera niya o kanyang properties. Kung meron siyang pera sa bangko, igagarnish namin yan at yan ang gagamitin namin pambayad sa kanyang empleyado.
For the big story in sports, it's not just the Filipino ballers that are making waves in Japan. Pinoy volleyball imports are also making a huge impact in the land of the rising sun. Gymnast Kaloy Yulo, meanwhile, is looking for redemption in the upcoming World Championships. More in my report. A more stable Kaloy Yulo is hitting all his tumbling passes in the floor exercise and even had clean landings on the vault. Yulo is gearing up for his world title defense in the 50th FIG World Artistic Gymnastics Championship in Japan this Wednesday. He's hoping to pick up on his gold and bronze finishes in the 2021 All-Japan Senior and Master Gymnastics. Also in Japan, Pinoy volleyball imports opened their campaign in the V-League. Reigning PVL MVP Jaja Santiago and her team Ageo Medics racked up back-to-back victories against the Okayama Seagulls. Jaja was reliable as ever, scoring 17 points in the first game and 10 points in the second. Power hitter Brian Bagunas and his team Oita Miyoshi, on the other hand, split their games on the opening weekend. Brian exploded with 22 points in the first game win, but was limited to 10 in the loss against Osaka. Mark Espejo, meanwhile, made his debut in the V-League. Unfortunately, Mark and his team FC Tokyo fell to defending champion Suntory Sunbirds in the opening weekend. Espejo registered 18 points, built on 15 attacks and 3 blocks on their last game. In the Japan B League, it was a showdown between Bobby Ray Parks and Dwight Ramos, with Ray coming out on top. Parks and Nagoya dominated the first game, winning by a margin of 26 points. Ray posted 15 points, 5 rebounds, and 1 assist. Dwight, meanwhile, struggled in his debut, scoring only 6 points. It was the same storyline in the second game, with Nagoya dominating. Parks had a game-high 17 points, 6 rebounds, and 2 assists as they improved to 3-3 in the standings. Dwight and the Grouses, meanwhile, are still looking for their first win this season. Gretchen Ho, We Are One News. Time for another quick break. When we return, a feud is starting to heat up between the Makabayan bloc and former Senator Antonio Trillanes. The latter is blasting the group for not endorsing Vice President Leni Robredo's presidential bid. And the living legend just got a fitting tribute, as Robert Jaworski Sr. is immortalized in Philpo's latest commemorative stamps. The details next.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. Senatorial Antonio Trillanes bears that he opposed the inclusion of Makabayan bloc's Nery Colmenares in Leni Robredo's lineup, citing its previous support of President Duterte.
But the coalition told him not to lose sight of the real goal: stop administration bets and Bongbong Marcos from taking hold of power once again. Marian Enriquez with the details.
Makabayan supporters were disappointed after Bayan Muna's Nery Colmenares did not make it to the 11-man Senate ticket of presidential aspirant Leni Robredo. Colmenares was among the conveners of Isang Bayan, which endorsed Robredo as standard bearer. Robredo, meanwhile, has time and again vowed to forge a united opposition. She has yet to announce her 12th senatorial bet.
Yung number 12, yung gusto sana namin, who will best represent the marginalized sectors. We have a number of nominees already, pero gusto kasi namin hindi ito decision ko lang.
Colmenares is confident that he will be part of the list, but former Senator Antonio Trillanes, who is in the slate, is opposing his inclusion.
There are some objections from some quarters in her slate. So they're still trying to probably to resolve that.
On Facebook, Trillanes admitted that a consultation happened. He vetoed Colmenares on the back of the bloc's endorsement of President Rodrigo Duterte in 2016. Colmenares ran under Grace Poe's ticket. On top of that, Trillanes said 5 Isang Bayan conveners from Makabayan did not endorse Robredo for the presidency and are supposedly backing Manila Mayor Isko Moreno. Trillanes then accused Makabayan of pushing for their vested interests. Bayan Muna's Carlos Zarate denounced all of this.
This is not the mature way of forging a broad front, no? Para malabanan yung pangunahing problema. No? Dapat ang mata natin with eyes on the ball.
Zarate said the goal is to stop the former dictator's son, Bongbong Marcos, from entering Malacanang, as well as the administration's bets. He said they have met with Moreno and Senator Pacquiao and are now pushing for a meeting with Robredo.
Maliban doon sa political objective, no, na labanan yung Duterte and Marcos tandem, ay anong platform ang pwede ring pagkasunduan, no? Minimum and maximum.
Among the things they wish to discuss with Robredo include pandemic response and workers' rights. For News 5, Marian Enriquez, we are One News.
In world news, at least 22 were killed. Torrential rain flooded the South Indian state of Kerala over the weekend. So far, the rainfall have caused landslides and flash floods along with damage to property. The Indian Army and Navy already did rescue efforts. Rainfall is expected to continue, according to the State Disaster Management Committee. Marveled as a tornado-like waterspout was seen at the coast of Cienfuegos on Saturday. The water formation swirled for 10 minutes late in the afternoon. No damages were reported.
Another big story in sports. The Philippine Postal Corporation has launched a commemorative stamp featuring PBA great Robert Jaworski Sr. to kick off the 75th anniversary of the country's first stamp. The limited edition Jaworski stamps were released on Saturday to commemorate the living legend who personified the never say die spirit of Barangay Ginebra. This is the first of a 3-part series of postage stamps to be released by Philpost. The series pays tribute to outstanding Filipinos who have made valuable contributions both in local and international scenes. Meanwhile, the 2021 Toyota Gazoo Racing Vios Cup made its comeback at the Clark International Speedway in Pampanga for Leg 2 of the event. Last Saturday, racing fans were treated to the comeback of veteran racers and newcomers, competing against one another to get the upper hand. Celebrities and media representatives likewise took part in the races. The second leg had been postponed until October due to the surge in COVID-19 cases in the country. This was why safety was the utmost priority for organizers during this leg.
For this event, safety is our priority, both for the participants and the organizers. We've strengthened our safety measures for everyone. So for this leg, the stakes are higher because those who performed well in the first leg, they all want to preserve their position in the race. And those that did not fare very well in the previous leg, of course, they are raring to perform better and prove themselves. So the action is much more exciting for this leg.
From Pennsylvania to Manila and all around the world, 18s sure did set social media ablaze with their tweets and posts of appreciation for SB19.
Sabi nila, di ko raw kaya, lang mapapala, wala raw pag-asa.
After their trending pop orchestra concert Forte concluded on Sunday, fans were on cloud 9.
There has not been one SB19 song that I haven't felt some kind of emotion, and I love that they're not afraid to take risks.
Sobrang ganda po nung feeling na may kasama silang orchestra throughout their whole concert, and napaka so real po nung feeling na yon.
Lahat po ng performance nila sobrang nagustuhan ko po. Yung voice nila sobrang nag-improve, ang dami, parang lahat ng music nila parang binigyan nila ng new flavors.
Mana, Mapa, and Ikako were fan faves for the night, joining Josh Pablo, Stel, Ken, and Justin as fourth impact. As well as soprano Nicole Pageda, tenor Isaac Iglesias, and SSC Chamber Choir, and Batig Chamber Orchestra. The concert is for a good cause as proceeds will go to unprivileged children supported by St. Scholastica's College. For News 5, MJ Marfori, we are One News.
And apart from singing, Filipinos, of course, will always be known for their close family ties, in particular, their fondness for their grandparents. Two apos are exemplars of that as they surprised their lola, whom they had not seen since the pandemic started. According to the Philippine Star, Lola Conching was stuck in Bicol since the pandemic started, separating her from her apos, whom she helped raise in Laguna. According to her daughter, Jeneline, Lola Conching's grandchildren tend to cry at night looking for her. When Jeneline's family took a trip to Quezon, they thought of extending the trip all the way to Bicol. And Lola Conching never expected who was coming knocking at her door in a seemingly typical midnight.
Nakaka-touch
Talaga naman,
Oo.
ano.
Eh, yung mom ko, ganyan din ka-clingy yung aso namin sa kanya. Wala pang apoy.
Pero ikaw tinaboy.
Hindi.
Pinalipat ka.
Hayaan mo nang wala ako sa bahay, basta yung aso nandun.
Pero nakakatuwa naman, especially ngayon na alert level 3, maraming mga reunions, pero ingat pa rin po tayo, ingat pa rin po.
Tama. At kahit bumabalik na yung mga concerts like the SB19, hopefully the events also, kasi I miss hosting events. So, mag-ingat tayo dahil kailangan natin alagaan yung isa't isa. Gaya na sabi ni Doc Jaime Almora, be responsible. Now, that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on.
Wash hands.
And stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Hall. We are One News. Have a good evening.
He's the only one who positioned himself as the administration.
Exactly. Well, that much we know. The fact
Correct.
that, his father was allowed to be buried